Hey Facebook, excuse the weird lighting. I am back in my car. It is dark outside, as you can see from my overhead lights in my car. So I apologize for those of you who might be in the video industry for the poor production quality, but I definitely wanted to get out a video this week. It has been a long week. I am in my car because I have been living in my car. Lots of long nights in Hartford. But we are starting to clip through some of the business that we've been working on for several months. And so first I wanted to highlight just some of the topics that have been in discussion, some of them in the news. Today, Ethan's Law, which is the law that passed the House a week or so ago, which basically requires that all firearms in a home in which a minor lives be stored safely. It passed the House some time ago, and today it passed the Senate, so it's making its way to the governor, and that's really good news for all of us. Then the budget. The budget is as I've discussed before, is a huge number of things that will be condensed into one or two bills on the different sides of the issue. And we've passed a lot of that in appropriations, and now that those negotiations are going on between the House and the Senate and the governor, and this changes all the time, but I'm hoping that we might even have a budget next week, which would be really good news for the state and for the towns and for everybody to have some predictability here. So more news on that next week, I hope. Today, the Senate passed the Family Medical Leave Act. This is family medical leave is something I talked about during the campaign. Because just as background, out of 185 countries, the U.S. is only one of 3 that does not provide paid maternity leave. So we are really the outlier here, and this program can work. And the question is how to get there, and whether Connecticut can manage to do this now. And so this is definitely a program where the details matter quite a lot, because this is complicated and it has required a lot of conversations. I think it's good news that the Senate passed a bill, because it means that this is a real possibility for Connecticut. As you may have heard, the governor has some challenges with the bill as passed in the Senate, and so those conversations are ongoing. So obviously we have to get all on the same page, and I think the governor makes some really excellent points about some challenges with this law of the bill, and so I look forward to more conversations about it. I do hear from a lot of you on this bill, people who feel really strongly on both sides of the issue. So I'd really like to hear from you and how you think it might affect you one way or the other. I think this is an issue that how it affects people on the ground matters quite a lot. So please keep sending your comments. The public option, this is something I've also talked about before. There are a series of bills that have come out of our insurance committee that have to do with creating a public option in healthcare. This is important to me because this is an area where we can really be of help to small businesses and nonprofits who have struggled mightily under healthcare costs that are just raging out of control for them, and they make it really hard to pay their employees better, honestly. I mean, this is, it's all the same money coming out of budgets, and healthcare costs have been just crippling. And so I already have, because it's been in the news, local nonprofits and small businesses reaching out to me and asking, how soon can we participate in this? And there's a really ambitious effort. There was a press conference today with the governor, the comptroller, the leaders of the insurance committee and various stakeholders and business leaders and other people who would benefit from these efforts to control our healthcare costs, all participated in it. And it's a really complex bill, but a really important one that I look forward to, and I hope that it moves ahead, because I think it's really important for all of us. So it has a couple of it has a lot of pieces to it, so it's quite complex, and I'm not going to possibly encapsulate it here, but I wanted to summarize some of the aspects of it. First of all, part of this is just the fact that small businesses and nonprofits are at a significant market disadvantage when it comes to purchasing healthcare, because big companies can get discounts. They can reduce overhead because they can handle, they can negotiate better, honestly. They have more market power. So this bill, basically, a lot of the cost savings, it is aimed at, its goal is to shave healthcare costs by 20%, and it has some pretty specific provisions to demonstrate that why they are quite confident that they're going to be able to do that. And part of that has to do with eliminating overhead that other insurance markets are creating. So that's a really helpful thing. Another aspect here is separate part of this bill can help people who have, I talked about during the campaign a lot, people who have been served by our state Medicaid program, the Husky program, which worked really well for them, and then they made more money, they got a better job, they got a raise, and they suddenly dropped off, and their healthcare costs went through the roof, and often the coverage got worse. And that's a real problem because it reduces people's incentive to be ambitious and to try new things and to get a better position and to take on a new job. And so this bill helps reduce that cliff. It's a little complicated, but it does address the fact that people drop off suddenly from these programs and helps provide, it helps prop up the individual market as well to help curb costs there. So I think that's also important. There are also several provisions here that are going to help reduce prescription drug costs that are also really interesting. As you can imagine, complicated and quite detailed, but I am going to follow those closely because I think they're really important for our economy. So I'm just going to highlight a couple other bills that we did pass this week in the House. One is HB 7125, which is about mental health parity. I've mentioned this one before, but the purpose of the bill is to require parity for mental health and substance use disorder benefits for drugs prescribed for the treatment of substance abuse disorders and substance abuse services. So parity between those kinds of services and those aimed at physical health. There are already some provisions requiring that parity, but this bill in particular would adds a reporting element, which means that we can make sure to enforce that. We also passed a bill that would create an LGBTQ health network. There are very particular needs in that community, and as one of the proponents pointed out, people in that community that might have particular health needs, it's not necessarily something that they can share with their family, and so they can be isolated. And creating a health network that can bring services together and give them something that they can access, I think is really important. We passed a bill, HB 5384, to ban single-use styrofoam containers. Which is, we have one of several, there are several bills that are moving their way through that are banning these kinds of straws, styrofoam containers, and of course the plastic bag. I still do expect to see banning the plastic bag appear on our go list, as they call it, when we look at the list of bills that are ready to hit the floor of the House. I've been speaking to the leadership of the Environment Committee, and I hope that we'll see that soon. So stay tuned. Then we also passed HB 7306. This was a bill that adopted recommendations from a commission on tourism. Tourism is really important to our state, and it's really important to our district, as I think many of you know. It is a huge economic engine and one that we have sometimes ignored or not provided adequate resources to, or delayed the provision of those resources. And so this was a really important bill. What it does, among other things, it reopens the visitor welcome centers, improves signs for tourist attractions, creates a Connecticut Tourism Council to improve marketing of Connecticut's attractions. And just as Liz said, the tourism industry in Connecticut supports more than 82,000 jobs, $14.7 billion in business sales, and $1.7 billion in tax revenues. So really important. And this one, clearly, this is a bill that got very widespread support because we really want to make sure that we support that industry. We also passed a bill, HB 7396, which was an act. This was one that was important to the domestic violence community, which many of you know I've worked in for a while, so it's one that I was paying special attention to. It essentially ensures that sexual assaults that occur in the context of a marital relationship or a cohabitation relationship are treated the same way as other sexual assaults. So it creates parity between the various levels of sexual assault, and that's an important improvement. So lots of other things, of course, happened this week in the many, but but that's where I'll end. And I hope you all have a happy Memorial Day weekend and have lots of festivities. And maybe I'll see you at one of the many parades in our district this weekend. And see you soon. Have a great weekend. Bye.